So Prabhupada starts the purport, he describes here. Qualitatively, the small atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Spirit is one with the Supreme. He undergoes no changes like the body. So Prabhupada starts by explaining the principal teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Achintya Beda Abeda Tattva, that we are simultaneously one with God, but we are different as well. We are subordinate. So we have the qualities of God, we have His nature, but by quantity, He is the ocean and we are the drop. By quantity is huge difference. Why? Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, Eko Bahunam Jo Vidadati Kaman. That both are Nitya, eternal, both are Chaitanas, conscious. What is the difference between the spiritual platform and where we are? Ek ho Bahunam Jo Vidadati Kaman. One is dependent on the other. So qualitatively we are equal, but quantitatively we are subordinate. So Prabhupada goes on. Sometimes the soul is called the steady or the kutastha. So this is how the soul is generally described in the Upanishads and the Puranas. Kutastha, that which is steady. So you can see it's difficult to give details, right? It's so difficult to give details so that we can understand it, because anything we relate to, because from where our human body consciousness is, we'll simply relate to it from the level of the body. And this is not so. The experience and the qualities of the soul are all different. So it can only describe it vaguely. It's eternal, nitya, it's unborn, and now we're reading it's kutastha, that it's steady. So at this point, we're only getting vague descriptions of it. Just so from where we are, we can understand it. But Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to raise your consciousness, Arjuna. If you're going to understand the deeper aspects of yourself, you got to go deeper. You got to go deeper within yourself. And that depth means to raise your consciousness. To go deeper within means to raise your consciousness higher. So that's why the spiritual practitioner connects to the spiritual platform through practices called sadhana. Different practices which keeps his consciousness there. It keeps his consciousness on the spiritual platform, the highest platform. Therefore, when he is perceiving, he can perceive very deeply. He can perceive very profoundly. So that's why the mantra, the prayers, all the sadhana is meant to keep our consciousness up at the spiritual platform. And that's why the practice of Krishna consciousness, as we were saying in the practical classes, is divided into 5 most powerful pillars of devotional strength. That by practicing these 5 things every day, your consciousness will be riveted from the spiritual platform. From that stable, powerful platform, you'll be able to assess yourself at the bodily level. You'll be able to assess yourself from the subtle level, the mind, intelligence, and the ego. And you'll be able to assess yourself from the spiritual dimension. Isn't that so empowering? So Prabhupada goes on. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformations. It takes its birth from the womb of the mother's body, remains for some time, grows, produces some effects, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. So we see these 6 changes of the body that it goes through. It's born, it grows, it dwindles, it produces some byproducts, and then finally it goes into oblivion. So this is a contrast. So what does contrast mean? It means to put 2 opposite things against each other. Yin, yang, black, white. That these are the stages of the body which is different from what the soul is. And why is he contrasting this? Because Arjuna is confused. He's seeing the body as the person. He's seeing the effects and changes of the body as the person. So this contrast makes it vivid. It makes it clear so that Arjuna can understand the difference in both. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born, but because he takes on a material body, the soul takes its birth. So on the previous point, Prabhupada gave the effects of the body. Now he's giving the effects of the soul. So he's making it clear to us, can you also see? Because at the end of the day, it matters to us. We don't want to be like Dhritarashtra, where we hear it and say, ha, theek hai. But no effect, no understanding. Therefore, Prabhupada is contrasting the body now with the effects of the soul. So Prabhupada goes on, the soul does not take birth there, and the soul does not die. Anything which has birth also has death. So let's take a look at this in this video, that the soul continues to exist even after the body has died.
Let's know what the level of consciousness for our patient. As the patient approaches death, the level of consciousness as measured by the EEG devices goes down to very low levels and then eventually goes to zero.
So of course, when it reaches zero, it means the person is dead.
So at this point, they're no longer breathing.
So at this point, the patient is no longer breathing.
And this is essentially a patient who is now passed away.
And this means a patient has passed away. He's dead.
After they die, the patient's monitor shows a surge in brain activity.
The level of spikes that we see are comparable to a person who's wide awake and talking.
Now, how can you get brain activity when the body is dead? So wasn't that phenomenal that the soul continues to exist? Prabhupada goes on, and because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present or future. He is eternal, ever existing and primeval. That is, there is no trace in history of coming into being. So Prabhupada is making the point that if past, present and future cannot affect the soul, then the soul is not affected by time. And if the soul is not affected by time, then it must be eternal. So he concludes here, under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, etc., of the soul. So this is a very deep point Prabhupada brings out here. What does it mean, impression?
The story I want to tell you about right now is called The Chicken and the Eagle. And I want you to become a chicken for a minute in your mind. I want you to imagine that you are the star of our chicken story. You're really an eagle, but you're being raised in a chicken yard. Your peers that guide you are chickens, they're good chickens, but they too were raised in a chicken yard. And you have learned to dig like a chicken. You have learned to make a hole and get down in it on a hot day. You've learned to caulk when somebody lays an egg. You have become a good chicken. You have been imprinted, and that's the word in psychology, just like a young duckling raised with chickens or a young chicken raised with ducklings. You're behaving according to your environment. But you're really a very beautiful eagle out in this chicken yard. And one day, along comes a male eagle. And flying over the chicken coop, he sees the female eagle. And she's down there doing all these chicken things. And he circles. He can't believe what he's seeing. And a shadow falls on the chicken yard. And one of the chickens lets out the notice. And they all run into the chicken house because there was an eagle. Well, the eagle hides, and he watches the chicken yard for days. And one day, the female wanders just far enough away from the house that he's certain he can intercept her before she could get back. So down he swoops. He cuts off her retreat. All the other chickens get into the chicken yard, into the chicken house. He has her cornered. The chickens inside are all worried about her. And he says, "What are you doing here in this chicken yard?" And she says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, you're an eagle. Look at yourself. You're an eagle. You're not a chicken." "Really?" she says, thinking, what's this eagle got up his sleeve? What's he going to do to me? And the eagle says, "Look, as an eagle, you can soar. You can fly higher. You are dominion of the sky. As an eagle, you don't belong in a chicken yard digging. You belong high above all of nature, accepting the wind, feeling it lift you, diving and feeling the rays. This just frightens the female eagle. But she's cunning. She is cunning. So she says to the male eagle, well, if I'm really an eagle, then you're not going to do me any harm, are you? Of course not, he answers. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help you. Well, if that's the instance, then you'll get out of my way. You won't block me if I wanted to leave, will you? No, I'm not going to hurt you. Look, I'll step over here. And as he steps, she runs to the chicken house. Safe inside the chicken house, she tells all her chicken friends how she outsmarted the eagle. And they all, wow, good job. Now, if you think about that story for a minute, and you think about yourself.
An impression is a thought that has been impressed upon you. That means you have been taught this. That is why the other day we were saying the fault is not in you. The fault is in your teachers, in the guru. The person who has taught you this about life, that is their fault. But we can see that by their innocence, even they did not know better. That's what they knew. So this is why it's so important to approach a bona fide spiritual teacher. A teacher that's coming in the disciplic succession, authorized by Krishna himself. If that step is not taken, there is no guarantee that what information you're getting is authentic. Because if we just take it by logic, logic can be defeated. You may have a better logic than I have. But does that establish the absolute truth? The absolute truth can only be established from the Supreme Truth himself. Therefore, we're hearing from Krishna as the authority on this matter. So Prabhupada continues, the soul at any time does not become old as the body does. So we can see by nature's way, the wear and tear on the body creates the symptom of old age. It's a symptom of the body that it's gone through severe wear and tear. And we can see even the process of the body to get energy, we get it from food. So we eat food and we digest food, and 90% of that is passed out as waste. So it's not the most effective process. It's not the most effective process of extracting energy, but that is what the body does. That's how the body gets energy. It extracts energy from food, of which 90% is waste. So you can see that creates a lot of wear and tear on the body, on the organs, on the digestive tract, on so many other levels of the body. So if we're expecting this now, this machine, yantra, we're expecting this machine, yantra mudari mayaya, that this machine of the body to exist eternally after all of that. The so-called old man, therefore, feels himself to be in the same spirit as in his childhood or youth. So just see, the mind creates the illusion for us that we are still the same, but the body is telling a different story. Only when the aches and pains become manifest, then we realize, oh, I'm living in my mind. I'm expecting what I'm perceiving in my mind to be the reality of my body. There's two different things. It's two different experiences. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree, nor anything material. So we can see the effect of past, present and future creates deterioration. So the aspect of deterioration occurs because of past, present and future. If there was no past, present and future, if there was no time, there'll be no deterioration. So Prabhupada concludes here. The soul has no byproducts either. The byproducts of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls, and owing to the body, they appear as children or a particular man. The body develops because of the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots nor change. So we're learning two things here. That by nature, the body is designed to survive and the body is designed to reproduce. Those are the two primary base qualities of the body. Therefore, as spiritual people, we don't connect with that feature because that brings out the animal nature. That is our animal nature. Therefore, by conscious choice, we connect to the spiritual platform so we can transcend the lower base qualities of survival and reproduction. And secondly, the hard reality is that whatever is a byproduct of this body, we become attached to. And we want to nurture it and grow it so that it becomes better than what we are. And that is simply the survival process of nature. See it for what it is. Don't see it for bigger than it is. Prabhupada goes on here. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body. The soul is full of knowledge and full always with consciousness. So what we're experiencing in those 6 stages of the body is simply information. It's not knowledge. What is the difference between information and knowledge? Information is that which is coming through the senses to serve us. It's just giving us choices. Do you want to act on the nose? Do you want to act on what the eyes is seeing? Do you want to act on what the ears is hearing? So it's giving us choices. But knowledge means that the intelligence has intervened and it has processed it, that this can be self-serving to the person. Prabhupada concludes, therefore consciousness is the symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. So Prabhupada now, having made that point, he gives an example that is common to the Upanishads and the Puranas about the sun. Let's see what Prabhupada says here. Sometimes we do not find that the sun is in the sky owing to the clouds, or for some other reason. But the light of the sun is always there, and we are convinced that it is there for daytime. As soon as there is a little light in the sky, early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. This consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. So what is the difference between the consciousness of the Supreme Being and our consciousness? He is omniscient. We are prone to become illusioned. And because of that tendency to become illusioned, we believe what we're seeing from the senses and what we're experiencing, and we design our life according to that. And that becomes life to us. So Prabhupada concludes here. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. That this knowledge of the soul, Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitram Midam Uttamam Pratyaksha Vargamam Dharmam Susukam Kartam Avyayam. In 9.2 it's described that this knowledge of the soul is the highest level of education, and it gives perception to the self by realization. Through knowledge, to becoming aware, by raising your awareness, by becoming mindful, by becoming conscious of who you are.